the situation of Africa today is characterized by two main aspects. First, vulnerability, the lack of resilience, and two, fragility. Vulnerability is on the economic front, meaning that countries are very weak and are prone to shocks. The lack of resilience has been proved when the price of commodities went down. Nigeria, South Africa, Angola were hit by the decline of commodities, oil and minerals. As a result, the budget of these countries went down, investment programs were cancelled. As a result, the monetary situation worsened, and there were more or less devaluation, poverty, unemployment. These are part of the volatility of our economics, the vulnerability of economics. So we are not strong enough to sustain shocks. So this is the first part of our situation. And of course, countries that had less resources start borrowing. And unfortunately, this may lead to debt sustainability. When we have problems with China, in some cases, it seems that the indebtedness of our country is not sustainable. Maybe our colleagues from Zambia may refer to the situation between China and Zambia. But I mean that when our own resources are declining, we have to resort to debt, and unfortunately, this indebtedness may bring us to the situation of hippies. And when we have this indebtedness, we cannot invest, we cannot create jobs, and this leads to poverty. We have youth today that are unfortunately jobless, and this should be normally some sort of demographic dividend, but unfortunately it may become a time bomb for Africa. So I was saying that vulnerability is one of the key aspects. Of course, inefficient agriculture is also part of this vulnerability because we rely mainly on rainfalls. And when we have disaster, when we have drought, we don't have copper. This will be very difficult to fight against hunger. This is really a big problem for Africa. Africa is the only continent where farmers are not able to feed themselves. Can you imagine? Farmers cannot feed themselves. Farmers are supposed to provide food for the whole population, but unfortunately in Africa, given the low yield of agriculture, we cannot feed our farmers, and farmers cannot feed the cities. The second characteristic is fragility. Fragility means that we have weak institutions, weak human capital. This leads to lack of capacity to manage our resources. We have huge potential in natural resources, but we cannot properly manage these natural resources. As a result, we are not able to strike good deals. We have bad deals on these natural resources because there is asymmetry of information between African countries and then international corporates. These international corporates have better information on our wealth, our natural resources, and unfortunately we sign a contract with this international corporation without knowing exactly what we are signing on. For example, in Guinea, we don't know exactly what we have underground. We have bauxite, we have gold, we have diamond, but we have to sign without knowing exactly what is the content of the deal. As a result, we may certainly be losing in this bad deal. The second aspect of the fragility is lack of capacity to be prepared to sustain shocks, crisis in health area, crisis in security area. In the security area, unfortunately, some of the crises are homegrown, but some of them are imported. It's the case of the Libyan crisis. I remember in 2011, when we attended the G8 meeting in Deauville, African leaders said bluntly to our partners to be very, very cautious about Libya. If Libya collapses, this may lead to a chaos in the whole sub-region, particularly in Sahel, because of the spread of arms. And Sahel may become like Afghanistan. And the nickname given to the area, Africanistan. There is a book that has been written recently with the title of Africanistan, meaning that Africa may become like Afghanistan, impossible to govern. And this is part of our own problems, but unfortunately, it's part of important problems. So these are the two key aspects of our situation: vulnerability and fragility. And of course, in the health area, we had the Ebola crisis recently, and we had to resort to international community to help our countries in Guinea, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone to fight against this disease. Security crisis, of course, is the key problem in Mali, and I'm talking under the control of our colleagues from Mali. Bamako was under the threat of terrorists. Fortunately, France decided to intervene. Otherwise, not only Mali could have been invaded, but our countries, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Niger, may perhaps also have been invaded. So fragility has to do with weak institutions, weak human capital, weak capacity to be prepared for crisis and to be able to respond to crisis. But also fragility means like the lack of checks and balance in the system. Our judiciary are weak, the civil society is weak, the electoral system is weak. As a result, when we have elections, we have always violence, we have always conflicts, because we do not have the proper institutions to manage this process. What to do to overcome fragility and vulnerability? As my colleague said, there are progress on the way. Today, we have new generation of African leaders that are committed to turn around the situation. The first thing is this Africa Agenda 2063 that have been displayed, and that this is the blueprint of African development. I don't need to go into the details that have been already spelled out by my colleagues, but this Africa 2063, this is the Africa we want: a sustainable development continent, a stable continent, a prosperous continent that is playing its role in the international community. The second aspect of this progress, this is the African free trade area. This also is supposed to promote only one market of more than 1 billion people on the continent. This is the main channel for integration, and of course it's a long process, because we have to be able to promote complementarities among our economies instead of competition among our economies. On the security front, we have G5 Sahel. This is part of the initiative in the Sahel area of Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, etc. And these countries have decided to join forces to be able to fight against terrorists. And of course, France, the US, the UN are helping, but the first effort is coming from these countries. On the political side, the democratization process also is underway. And we have now peaceful transfer of power in a number of countries: Liberia, Ghana, South Africa, Senegal, Zimbabwe also, and, and Guinea. And of course, the African Union is really having a very close scrutiny to all the processes, including the one now in DRC. Hopefully, wisdom will prevail in that country. However, nevertheless, of all this progress, I do believe that we need more effort. More effort means that we have to diversify our economies. We have a blueprint, that's fine. We have agreement for free trade, that's fine. But we have to work on the ground to diversify our economy, starting with agriculture. Agriculture is the area where we have 3/4 of Africans are working. And this is the area where we have more poor people. So if we are able to boost agriculture, to bring innovation, to provide resources for farmers, I'm sure that Africa is going to feed itself, and of course, our farmers will be able to feed themselves, and we could be able to feed the world. Today, we know that the world has food problems, and Africa could be that basket that could feed the world. We need also infrastructure, energy, telecommunication, transport system. In my country, Guinea, we are the water tower of West Africa. This means that all big rivers of the region are coming from Guinea. We are able to build hydro dam, and this hydro dam could provide energy not only to Guinea, but also to the sub-region. Guinea has mining, but this mine today is only exported as raw materials. We have to turn that around to be able to process our bauxite into alumina, and from alumina to aluminum. The energy sector is one of the key sectors in Guinea, not only for Guinea, but also for our colleagues. And of course, the EU has its program, the PIDA program, to develop infrastructure overall in the whole continent. But we have to start with the sub-region. In ECOWAS, we have what we call the power pool. This means that the energy is distributed, allocated in all countries, and we share energy. Guinea is going to share energy with Mali, with Senegal, with Gambia, with Nigeria, and Nigeria, with its gas, is going to provide energy to all of the countries. This is what is happening in West Africa, and we need to continue. Of course, we need to deepen a democracy. We need to strengthen institutions of checks and balance. We need to strengthen the judiciary system. The judiciary system is not only for democracy, but also for investment. The judiciary is able to protect investors. Investors may come in our continent if their interests are protected. So the judiciary is key for any economy, particularly in Africa. And it's key for good governance. And of course, we have to work not only on national level, but also on the regional level. My colleague referred to Nepal. I would like to add that we have an instrument in Nepal, what is called African Peer Review Mechanism, that was put in place 15 years ago. This is supposed to bring Africans together to share their experience in the area of democratic governance, economic governance, social governance, even corporate governance. And this instrument were championed by President Thabo Mbeki, by President Obasanjo, by President Wade from Senegal, and President Bouteflika from Algeria. This instrument there is need to be revitalized to make sure that things like what is happening in DRC may not happen. If we have this mutual exchange of experience, we may be able to create some sort of agent of refrain to avoid violence after election, to avoid rigged election, to ensure that we are on the same page, we have benchmarks, and we could be able to make sure that our elections are peaceful. On the security area, I talk about G5 Sahel. The C5 Sahel is African initiative, but it needs to be supported by the international community in terms of funding, in terms of equipment, in terms of training, in terms of exchange of intelligence, because our partners from Europe, from France, from the US have more tools for information. They should be able to share this information to the G-Sahel countries. On the economic front, we have the compact with Africa that was initiated in 2017 by the G20 in Berlin. This compact is supposed to promote more investment for the continent, to provide more guarantee to investors to come to the continent. It is also supposed to provide some sort of Marshall Plan to the continent, and some people call them Merkel Plan, and in the name of Chancellor Merkel, because she is the one who initiated this compact with Africa. My recommendation is that this compact with Africa should come with concrete projects and not with studies and studies and studies and studies. We need to see concrete projects to make sure that investors are coming to Africa. The US also is taking a very important initiative with this new investment development fund with OPIC and US aid. We do hope that Africa could be part of the priority of this fund. A few days ago, we received a briefing from the OPIC CEO to explain the conditions, the criteria, but we insist that Africa should be at the forefront of this initiative that is important. It is supposed to challenge China, $60 billion of US dollars. But we do hope that it could complement what China is doing in Africa. And we raise the question is the US going to partner with China to develop the continent? We don't need competition. We need to develop our continent. We do hope that the 60 billion from the US will complement the 60 billion from China. Together, I'm sure that we're going to have a very good program of development for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ask me the question whether Africa can claim the 21st century, my answer will be yes. Africa can claim the 21st century. Africa is the last frontier of economic growth in the world. The world needs Africa. The world needs a stable Africa, a prosperous Africa. Thank you for your attention.